Hello and welcome to this video where we will go through the Elastic Detection Rules repository in GitHub. And just laying some groundwork, what I have here is VS Code open. I just have a folder here called GitHub where I'm going to store some files for this video. But for now, what I'm going to do is navigate over to the Elastic Detection Rules repository. And scrolling down here, you can see some pretty good documentation where they explain how the repo is set up, how it works, how you can use it. Okay. And essentially think of this repo as a one-stop shop for all things detection management within Elastic as a product. Okay. So Elastic will tell you if you want to manage your alerts through programmatic means to use the tool that they built for detection engineering and alert management. Okay. And what we're going to do in this video is walk you all through the steps on how to download it, how to execute and use the application, and how it can be used if you want it to be solely in the Elastic ecosystem. So to start, what we want to do is go back into our VS Code application. We're going to open up a terminal. We're going to run git clone. And if you click code here, you'll get the URL to clone the repository. And then we could run it. What this will do is essentially copy all the data that's in the repository down onto your hard drive. This shouldn't take up too much space if you're worried about that. And what we'll see when we expand this out is everything that is currently in that repository. So for example, we have some folders here like detection rules, docs, Kibana, KQL. And going back to here, we have detection rules, docs, Kibana, KQL. Okay, so it's set up in the same structure and format. And what we want to do is scroll down to the installation section so you can see pip3 install.dev. Just going to copy that. Go right back to our VS Code instance and execute. I did the wrong folder. You're going to have to be into the detection rules folder there. And let's try that again. Okay, now that we have that operational, what we can do is go back to the instructions and make sure that this help command works. If you notice what they're doing is running Python and then their detection rules module, which gives us a lot of functionality that we're going to dig into in a second here. All right, and there we go. This confirms that we have the module running. It works properly, at least from the perspective that we can execute it. Okay. So what we can do is just look at some of the commands here. Okay, so we can create rules, we can export rules, we can use KQL or EQL to iterate over all the rules and see if there's any matches. So for example, if you're looking for any alert with a specific file name, you can write that KQL, maybe in Elastic, and then search to make sure it works. And then you could use this tool to then search across all your detections. It has a TOML linter, which is interesting. So if you write your TOML in the wrong way, that will flag any TOML formatting issues. And then these two are the most interesting to me. You have some validations here. So here we have validate-all and validate-rule. This is essentially a way that you can check a single rule or all the rules in the repository for validation checks. Okay. And really what I mean there is enforcement. So for example, if I go into an alert, go to rules, Windows. We just click the first one here. As we've seen in the last video, there's a format that we're expecting. Okay, so for example, let's say name, which is a required field, we delete. All right, now let's save this file. We now have an incomplete TOML file from Elastic's perspective. Okay, and what we can do is run the check. Okay, and you see it through an error here. It says missing data for required field, and that field is name. What's interesting is that it's triggering on a lot of other items as well, which makes this out-of-the-box application usable, but it's a little unclear how exactly this could be used at scale if it's not giving you exactly what you want to see. Okay, so for example, let's put just that name field back in, run the validator, and you can see that it was successful. So even though it output all this data as being bad, the problem was just the name. Okay, at the very least, it tells you that the name was bad a couple different times here. So we see it here and here. Okay, let's say we want to do the same test, but run it against all the alerts. We can run validate-all, and this will take quite some time. That's to iterate over every single document and make sure that it all fits the schema. If we look at the output here, scrolling up, you can see that it identifies the file and then gives you a bunch of errors and then that ambiguous error that data was wrong in one of the fields. Okay, let me revert this back. So the big question is, if Elastic gives us this out-of-the-box way to run some checks to validate that the required fields exist, and everything that Elastic needs is present, why wouldn't we for this course just use this kind of product? And ultimately, nothing's stopping you from using this. If you're already using Elastic at your company, you might want to go down this route, mostly because if there's problems with it, there's a community behind it. You probably have an Elastic engineer or customer success manager or something along those lines that you can reach out to. If you have issues, you can get people on the phone to help you work through that. Okay, but that's the pros and cons of using a vendor solution. You might have someone to reach out to, but if you want to customize it, or if it doesn't quite fit your use cases, then you're kind of out of luck. All right, so this was a quick demo of the Elastic Detection Rules repository and the functionality within. The main point here is that we want to make sure our files are correct. They have the correct fields. Okay, but what we're going to do is not rely on it for this course. We want to make sure that our files are correct and they have the correct fields and all the data that we expect. In future videos, we are actually going to write our own scripts to do all the data validation, field enforcement, and upload all of those to Elastic. I hope this has been interesting, and I'll catch you in the next video.